I try my best now. So if everyone hears me, then I try to start with the plenary session number 3, Outlook and Next Steps. We are a little bit late, okay, so that everyone is probably with us. And I start with a little bit bookkeeping or announcement. Please, if you leave the conference, give us your feedback at the feedback booth in the main hall. Please, I would like to draw your attention to the new publication of the Factor X book, which is at the information desk, where you can get one copy. And all the presentations, even when there is nothing on the screens, are in the next days available, including the PowerPoints and the slides and all these other things. So that's the beginning. And now we have 3 presentations and one guest from India, Ashok Khosla, an old friend from me, and me. We will discuss and try to have an outlook and next step. So we start with Jagoda Munich from the Friends of Earth, which is I think the non-governmental organizations are very important for policy development. If we talk about science-based societies, then an important role have non-governmental organizations, because they are the possibility to bring science-based knowledge into the private sphere, but also they are a powerful actor if they have a long-standing information of policy and others. So non-governmental organizations are very important for the future of our policy, and Friends of Earth are very long in the game of influencing policy and also the private sphere. Please, Jagoda Munich, the floor is yours.
Thank you and good afternoon. This is really a nice introduction. Indeed, Friends of the Earth Europe is an environmental NGO organization. We have 32 member groups across Europe. We are also part of Friends of the International, so it's a global network, and we are proud to link grassroots work with communities in different countries, work on regional and national level with pan-European work, European advocacy, and of course link it with international. Today, I will not speak on behalf of all civil society, but on behalf of my organization. And to build on what you just said, I would really appreciate and welcome that in future we have more speakers from civil society, not only because we can bring scientific development back to communities and to broader public, but also in developing co-creative solutions, sustainable solutions and just solutions to address issues of environmental challenges, including resources. So having said that, maybe I can just recap about a few challenges that we face today. That's not surprising for you. Many of those have been mentioned earlier today. The first one is obvious: natural resource depletion globally, that is still increasing. We see that global material footprint is already beyond ecological limits. There is about 100 billion tons per year above the limits. And if we continue in this direction of consumption, it's expected to double in the next 40 years. So we are aware that this trajectory is not sustainable. The second element, second challenge, it was also mentioned today earlier, is that European consumption of resources is very unequitable. We are one of the highest resource consuming regions per capita globally, so we consume much more beyond the limits, and also much beyond that would be our fair share. But we also import most of those natural resources. So that's something that it was already recognized as a problem to be addressed. In addressing challenges, we also have to analyze not just environmental impacts, but social impacts. And in this map on the slide, the bottom of the slide, you see lots of dots on a map. This is extraction from the Environmental Justice Atlas that actually try to map environmental conflicts across the globe between local communities and unsustainable use of nature resources. The number of conflicts are actually increasing, and evidence shows that even in countries that display themselves as global leaders in environmental standards have trouble keeping their commitments on the ground. Canada is one of those examples when we have a highest number of mining-related environmental conflicts in the world. And the last point to address that we are also aware, and really listened very interesting debate on how actually do this transition. We are talking about now as a priority of digital and green transition in Europe. I'm really glad that these are priorities, particularly green transition. We, of course, all want to support moving towards 100% renewable energy as soon as possible. But, of course, in the same time, we have to address the inevitable massive increase in metals and minerals mined for this transition. So it's good to look at the needs for energy and actually see how much energy we need and what for in addressing these issues. So these are kind of challenges we face today. And then maybe I can go to next slide. I hope you see it. Very often there is talk about the solution is to decouple resource use from economic growth, and that resource efficiency is actually and circularity is a solution to a problem. From our perspective and our analysis, this is not going to be enough. And actually, even European Commission stated that consumption of materials and energy, as well as the generation of non-material waste, have continued to increase despite the increases in circular material use and recycling. So efficiency will not deliver the needs that we have. So the question is how we can achieve this absolute resource reduction use. And then one of the answers would be that maybe we should shrink these circular economy circles. Go to next slide. What we are advocating for? We are advocating for setting EU-level binding resource reduction targets based on the 4 footprint indicators that we have. So the question is how we can achieve this absolute resource reduction. I had some can you hear me? Okay. I hope I had some interaction. I don't know what's happened there. Anyway, to continue. So we are advocating for setting EU-level binding resource reduction targets based on the 4 footprint indicators. This means reducing material, land, water, and carbon footprints within ecological limits. And in particular, we are advocating for setting of an EU material footprint reduction target of 50% by 2030 based on 2015 baseline. This is actually inspired by the similar Dutch target, so I think we had some discussion of that too today. We have to look also at sectoral plans to ensure targets are achieved. In mobility, ensuring there is a mass investment in public transport and shifting away from individual car ownership and air travel, for example. In product design, ensuring sustainable products become the norm, but of equal importance, we need to look at sustainable system to make this the norm too. For example, products and services must be accessible, affordable, and convenient for all. Packaging, moving towards reusable packaging for food and drink with deposit return system can be one example. And then for repair, affordable access to spare parts and designed to assemble and replace parts by yourself. And maybe we have to go even deeper in the core of the problem, because our economic system is still based on growth, and we cannot move away from this growth paradigm. And that's a hot debate of the day. we need to rethink economy, and we have to create economy that actually satisfy the needs of all within environmental limits. Technological change will not deliver the targets that we want to achieve. And in particular, this example that we are giving, there are many discussions how this should look like, but one example that I like very much is the one of Donut Economy by Kate Raworth, because this is a very visual model, as you can see on this picture, because it consists of the environmental ceiling of the 9 planetary boundaries and the social foundation derived from internationally agreed minimum social standards. And what we have to achieve is to be between the two. So we have to provide for the needs and bring economy within planetary boundaries and create this safe space, a safe and just space for humanity. There are already some examples, like a city of Amsterdam, people try to test it, how it would work on local level, like in cities of Amsterdam. I know some researchers in Croatia that are trying to do that for regional level. So it's interesting to see what kind of indicators we should have to implement this in practice. But we have to look also in social policies. Very often we talk about lifestyle changes, individual lifestyle changes, but in fact, we need to have social policies that are going to support those lifestyle changes. And in terms of work-related and economy-related policies, that could be working less time, placing a cap on income, for example, implementing universal basic services, and other policies that can deliver together more sustainable and more just economy. And the last, I would like to point out that as we know that the transition to renewables is going to be demanding increased metal and minerals mining, we have to ensure that this is done in the least damaging way, and we have to ensure that this actually demand for raw materials is reduced. So in practice, when we talk about mining, we have to respect communities' rights to say no to mining projects, both inside and outside of Europe, because Europe might have a quite huge impact in Global South on mining, and very often a situation in which those minerals are mined is very bad for local communities because their rights are not respected. We also advocate for basically mandatory human rights and environmental due diligence law at the level of European Union, which would impose liability on companies for harms committed at home or abroad for violating human rights, environmental human rights, and that will guarantee access to justice for victims of corporate abuse. This is very important. At the moment, we have mostly volunteer-based mechanisms, which in countries where there is no strict, strong rule of law, it's really big problem of the local impact. And to conclude, coming back to the civil society participation, I really believe that with the stronger involvement of civil society and local communities, we can co-create innovative solutions that will help us to achieve sustainability and also justice for all. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your presentation, and I think the presentation, I liked much what you have said. Binding EU resource reduction targets. Economic system is based on growth, 100% renewables. So shrinking the size, not only looking into circularity and efficiency, what is the lifestyle we need? And before we go to the students, maybe Ashok could shortly react on that, because I think these are things we are asking for decades now. And what is your opinion about that, Ashok? Ashok is not on board more?
Oh, I'm here. I'm here. Can you see me and can you hear me?
Yes.
Good. Look, I would be happy to talk just now, but maybe it would be better if I do so after the two students, because we're wrapping up the whole sessions, and I would like to give some thought to what they say as well. So would you prefer me to come at the end, or do you want me to talk now?
No. It was only giving you the chance to react on the proposals of the non-governmental organization Friends of the Earth, but no problem with taking further.
In my last session, which was just before this, my entire presentation was on giving civil society a role to play, which is much beyond what normally governments and international agencies give it. Because many of the things that need to be done, not just advocacy of new policies, not just looking at and shouting about emerging issues, but you can do a lot of real high quality innovation work through civil society, which cannot be done very easily through government bodies or even academic institutions. Certainly businesses are not interested in the kind of future sustainability issues that we need to look at. So I agree entirely with the Friends of the Earth. They are quite right. We need to strengthen the ability of civil society organizations of various types, NGOs, voluntary organizations, think tanks, professional bodies of various types, and indeed social enterprises, people who try to bring business into the sphere of development. Now, all of these have a lot to contribute, and I thank you for the opportunity for reinforcing what she just said. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we follow the idea of giving the two students the floor, starting with Esha Nitin Patil from the TERI School of Advanced Studies, and after that we have a German students reporter. So, Esha, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Tharman. Am I visible? Yes, I think so. Okay. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am here today as a student of sustainable development policies and an aspiring social researcher. But I'm also here today as a citizen of the current and future planet Earth. Being a part of this conference has been fascinating and has re-energized my hope for a more sustainable, equitable, and prosperous world. 2020 has been challenging in more ways than one, but of course, attending this conference would not have been possible for me or many of our audiences the world over had it not been for this platform. There has been plenty of ongoing dialogue about the pandemic being a wake-up call and using its momentum to multiply our existing efforts towards sustainable recovery. Like the Dutch Minister for Environment pointed out, for climate change, there is no vaccine. Our only defenses are resilience and globally coordinated efforts. Today has strengthened my belief that the European continent, with its position as a market leader and innovator, is showing the way with the ambitious targets that it has set out for the European Green Deal. The Nexus approach to sustainability, as discussed at length by our experts, draws attention to the need to focus on how much is enough. In the words of Dr. Lehman, what is our future lifestyle? How do we move from well-having to well-being, from consumerism to happiness? And how do we make sure we don't leave anyone behind? Throughout the course of the day, I've had several thought-provoking moments that I am certain will be of relevance as I navigate my future career. One, understanding that economic growth and competitiveness are no longer separate from sustainability. Instead, are reinforced by it. So how do I, as a future policymaker, tap into that mindset? Two, when thinking about our negative ecological footprints, we must focus not just on the carbon footprints, but simultaneously on its material footprints. How can I, as a consumer, contribute to keeping resources and products within the system for more cycles? Three, recognizing that resource efficiency and effectiveness cannot be satisfied with an internal focus, but need multi-level and multinational alliances with external and forward-looking outlook. How do I, as a citizen of an emerging economy, bring this knowledge into the public consciousness? What are the values that I vote for? Given how stimulating this conference has been, I am sure I could go on, but for the paucity of time. However, my fellow students have been reporting on all the sessions, and I'd encourage everybody to find their detailed posts on the ERF Student Reporter blog. I'd also invite you to interact further with the conference on Twitter to keep this conversation going. I'd now like to call upon my colleague Alexander Becker to share his thoughts and impressions. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Esha. Very great presentation, very confident. My name is Alexander Becker. I'm a technical student at the University of Clausthal, and I'm just about to start a master's degree in environmental process engineering. So I'm somewhat familiar to the field of sustainability, but it's more the engineering approach. And as a student that is targeted towards sustainability, coming from the technical side of aspects with a big focus on recycling, the conference that I attended today had very unique and very detailed insights that you normally don't get to hear in your normal courses in university. One of these topics that was very broadly discussed today was circular economy. Circular economy was the very reason why I chose an environmental field of study rather than a classical engineering study. And despite my prior knowledge to circular economy, there were a lot of new insights today, and I've never heard such detailed and clearly experienced and knowledgeable breakdowns of the topic as I have heard before, with design choices not only starting at the very beginning, but also in the different elements of chains and every single step of the whole process of a product life cycle, and collaborations between companies and different branches of industries. However, since I have only very limited time, I have to keep this brief. And since I was asked to make a statement about my personal take on the given situation and the possibilities within the given situation, I will very gladly do just that. And I'd like to state, as it has been stated several times today, that the current financial and health crisis is in fact a great opportunity to create new infrastructure and to create social and economic change in the way that we think about given aspects, the way that we approach the whole system. But I also have to state, also coming from a student's viewpoint, that first of all, it's a challenge, and I see a challenge in the following. Aspect, being. I'm sorry, I got lost. Okay, I see a challenge in the following aspect, as in regaining the consciousness and regaining the momentum for support and for sustainable measures that existed prior to the crisis. As in the given state, the general public and most importantly, the political decision makers are busy doing very different things than obtaining themselves with measurements for preserving the climate, for preserving the 1.5 degree mark by 2050. They are busy and they have their heads targeted with saving the economy, with keeping businesses from going bankrupt, with saving businesses. And that's very important. And also with the whole health aspect, of course, which is equally important. But the sustainable aspect and the entire environmental aspect has gotten lost, and retaining that, regaining that is very important. And the good note is that you're not starting from scratch. Prior to the crisis, there was a strong momentum and there was a very strong support in the public and also in the political landscape to support sustainable measurements, starting with the Fridays for Future movement that caught onto the entire Central European continent, and that had sort of a rippling effect through the society, and more people got interested and more people supported these measurements. So you're not starting from zero. However, at the moment, people are not thinking about sustainability, which is very understandable, but it needs to be brought back to attention. And
thank you. Yes. Sorry.
It's okay. I only wanted to say one more thing. Yeah, sorry, I got lost again. Regaining the support and regaining the activism towards climate preservation is an important challenge, but it can be achieved by education and by reaching out to the people and communicating. Okay.
Thank you for the insights and what you take away from the conference. Now I want to go to Ashok Khosla. Ashok Khosla, I know you since decades, and if we look at that, what we did in the last decades, then there is clearly the question how there are only very small successes in limiting the growth of material flows. If I think about the ideas we had in the 90s and the actions we have done, and if we look at the material flows today, it is only a limiting effect we have. So my view, or my personal question to you, and what I hope that you can answer today at the end, in addition to that, what you prepared is, what are the bloody things we have to do to have a turnaround now? So please, Ashok, take the floor. We have time, even if we are now over time, we will make it with time and with enough information. Okay, Ashok, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Harry. Is my mic on? Could you just confirm that you can hear me?
It's okay.
Okay. Thank you once again. What a wonderful set of speakers you assembled. I thought I learned such a huge amount, not just from Jagoda, but from Esha and from Alexander. They really homed in on major issues that confront humankind in the future. And I'm really pleased to have an opportunity to follow them. First of all, Harry, you and I go back a long way, but the main reason for our going back a long way was our mutual friend, colleague, and mentor, Bio Schmidt-Blick. And I want just to mention that what we learned from him is still relevant. It's still amazing that after 30 years of working on issues of material flows, resource issues, and resource efficiency and productivity, the issues are still beyond reach at the moment. And although we've done so much over the last 30-odd years on this, we still have a long way to go. But we are gradually getting there, and I wouldn't want to sound pessimistic because so much has been achieved that one could hope that the future will be even better. I did just now finish in the previous session making my presentation, and would you believe it, that it was almost entirely on how important civil society is in the future of our managing our resources. I did talk about what the government of India does. I did talk about what business in India does, what other institutions like academic institutions do. But what has been forgotten often is the fact that for policy advocacy, for looking at and alerting society to emerging issues, to outreach, these are all well known and civil society is very good at. But there is an area that it has never really been given enough due credit for, and that is technology innovation. Innovation of institutional and technological in the future of our managing our resources. I did talk about what the government of India does. I did talk about what
we are lost at the moment. I think we have lost Ashok, or is he coming back?
I'm here now, but somebody came in between. There was somebody's microphone was on. Can you hear me now?
I can hear very well.
There was a little interlude that somebody turned up on the screen. I don't know who it was. Maybe from another planet. I thought I would share a few thoughts now on the discussions we've been having at the European Resource Forum, not only in previous years, but this year. And in view of the new Green Deal that in Europe that is really quite a remarkable achievement and promise for a better future, and what we could do to learn from it and maybe even to amplify it and add to it. One thing I think the European New Green Deal needs a little more of is attention to its impacts on the Global South. Its ability to help the Global South through trade and aid, but more importantly, how the configurations that will come into being for circularity, for recycling, for reuse, refurbishing, remanufacturing, how these will impact the economies of the Global South, both as users and importers of these ideas and technologies, but also as sources, particularly of raw materials. So you've got to actually look at the new Green Deal not just as a better future for Europe, but as a better future for the globe. And that means that its implications for the Global South, both as exporters and importers, of not just things and commodities and technologies, but of ideas, these are going to be very important. I do think that the trade and aid regimes will have to be driven, not only focus on, but be driven by the imperatives of resource productivity, of circular economy. These are really fundamental to the future of civilization and of maybe even of the human species. And so we really got to look at these. As Bio Schmidt-Blig used to say, it's not energy, it's material flows that are causing the problems of energy and carbon emissions. And it is there that we've really got to rethink what development means. We now need to think in the North also of incentives to private sector entities, businesses, on how to promote, or at least not hinder, the Global South from achieving its goals on resource productivity. This, as Esha was saying, depends on building resilience, building the resilience of economies and societies in the South to be able to handle perturbations, handle crises of the kind that we've just been through for the last 7-8 months, and handle them in a way that doesn't bring the entire economy to a grinding halt. And that means that we've got to look at early warning systems. We've got to look at our ecosystems and how we handle them, and how cavalier we've been with the biosphere. And now it's rebounding. Now it's saying enough is enough, which means that both the North and the South, governments in Europe, in North America, in Asia, and in Latin America, Africa, have to now design institutions and infrastructure and strengthen individuals and communities to be able to put in place systems that are resilient, policies that are resilient to such changes and crises, and that they're ready for dealing with emergent situations of the type that we faced in January. So That means that we've got to promote an educational system that basically promotes creativity and innovation. There has been a long tradition in Europe of decentralization, of what is called subsidiarity, of doing at the lowest possible level what it can do. And I don't think that in practice this has been true of almost any continent in recent years. Neither in Europe, nor in America, nor in Asia can we really say that subsidiarity, that putting the people in the community in charge of their lives has been really very successful. And unless we do that, there is no way that you can have resilient communities. You may have a resilient economy provided you're willing to invest heavily in those things, but you need to be able to bring all that resilience into the entire society. Harry, we talk a great deal about nature-based solutions with respect to climate change. Adaptation, mitigation, we talk about forestation, we talk about ways in which nature-based solutions are the future of dealing with climate crises in the future. But you know, nature-based solutions are even more important for resource efficiency and for a circular economy. In fact, they're integral. The idea that we can have resource efficiency simply by fine-tuning our machines, by making some products that are recyclable or recycled or reused, is quite definitely not enough. We really now need to do what has to be done, which is deal with the issue of, again, what Escher called sufficiency or enough. What is enough? I call it sufficiency because efficiency and sufficiency rhyme and they go together. And sufficiency has two meanings. One meaning is a Gandhian meaning, sufficient to have enough. Sufficiency is not to be too greedy and to be cavalier with the resources of Mother Earth. So one sufficiency refers to the ceiling, to the amount that is enough to lead a decent, well-designed and fulfilling life. The other sufficiency is at the bottom, the floor. And we need to recognize that you cannot have raise the floors unless you also limit the ceilings. This is a part of the donut Kate Raworth talks about. The issues are to do with both the maximum and the minimum a person needs in order to lead a healthy, good, dignified, fulfilling life. So I believe that resource efficiency, resource productivity, circular economy are going to be meaningless unless they also lead to human productivity, human efficiency, and well-being. So, and we're not talking about just a few human beings who make billions of dollars. We're talking about every single last citizen of the planet. And so this, I think, is something that is missing in the dialogue. We're talking about enough about resource efficiency, but now we've got to bring in the whole concept of resource efficiency, resource moderacy, if you like, moderate use of resources into our dialogue. So before I finish, let me just add one more thing that's been a lot on my mind. The International Resource Panel and the European Resource Forum and the Global Resource Forum are all wonderful platforms, fora, for doing intellectual think tank work and designing and addressing science policy interface issues. Very important. But none of them have a governing body to call them into account. IPCC has the UN Framework Conference on Climate Change. UNFCCC, in a sense, and the COPs, in a sense, are the recipients of the wonderful scientific knowledge that is generated by IPCC. and calls them into account. They are basically responsible to each other for high-quality, knowledge-based policy formulation. The same applies to IPBES. IPBES and the convention, UN Convention on Biodiversity, same deal. They are related to each other as a knowledge-based platform of providing knowledge to a policy-making body, which is the COPS of the CBD. Similarly, we would expect that the International Resource Panel, which is really working on the major, very big issues, just as big in some ways as biodiversity and climate change, because they're all totally related, don't have anybody to respond to, don't have anybody to make demands on. It has a steering committee, and that steering committee has a few people from different governments, but it's not a governing body, it's not a policy formulation body, it's not a global mechanism by which global policies on, or international policies on resources could be made. And I believe that the time has come for us to work towards that. We need to be able to go beyond the environment, UNEP. We need to go beyond, the mechanism, the high-level political forum, to have a body that is really concerned with how do resources benefit humankind in the best possible way. This is going to require a fair number of very difficult decisions. There are certain areas that resource management is going to have to deal with, which are going to be very inconvenient from the point of view of the powers or the establishments of our economies, the people who run our economies. They're not going to like the kinds of things we have to do if we're going to save Mother Nature and planet Earth. I think planet Earth will be okay, but civilization and life on Earth may be at risk. Certainly, the human species is in not at all good shape. So let us see if we can now go a little beyond sharing experiences to what is needed in the way of political frameworks, or political institutional frameworks that would help us make sure that the wonderful new knowledge that is being generated by the different resource forums is going to become part of everyday life. Thank you.
You for the ideas and the insights. I completely follow you that we need such a treaty, that we need something that helps us to be on the same level like the climate change discussion, like the biodiversity. And then we can put in our goals. And, also with Bio Schmidt-Blake, we formulated that at least we have to increase the lower the resources by a factor of 10 and more. Okay, but that's something which we have to address in future. We have to make small steps, and one step in the future could be that we at the European level have binding resource targets, that we have at least a European Green Deal which moves into that direction. We are very late at the moment, so I will not start another question, everyone, because we are already behind 20 minutes behind the time, and it would be unpolite to continue. But I don't want to stop this or end this conference without clearly remembering that we are talking about this since 30 years. There are a lot of people that accompanied us. There are a lot of things like Bio Schmidt-Blake that also were formulated in the past about bringing the value of materials into the prices, having different ways of calculating the impact, food, all these indicators I can follow for hours for that. But important is also that we have to change our economic system and not that. So all these together what I learned from today also is that we have to be more courageous. We have to be more loud. We have to have more impact. We have to learn probably from a movement like Fridays for Future that was able to change a little bit policy. It was able to change because we had from a science part already prepared the solutions. Fridays for Future was a power which which changed the inertia of certain systems. So let's think about how to realize that. What you said, Ashok, has to be done in international treaty on resources, on material, and all these things. I hope that even in these times where we have governments which don't like multilateralism, it will be possible to have at least a small group of countries that are able and are willing to do that. And the European Union is a good set of countries where that can start. So that's this part, and I hope that we will go into the future with that. I will not close without saying some thank yous. Clearly, on behalf of everyone who worked in the background, it's amazing. A lot of people from the agency, a lot of people from SBS, from MeetU, 80 speakers, and clearly I would particularly like to thank Christopher Manstein for his work. Without them in the background, all the crises we had with virtuality dropping out and all these other things would not been solved very fast. Unfortunately, we are virtual. So normally, if we would have met in Berlin, we would have had now a drink and we would have been able to follow the discussions even in the evening and night. Unfortunately, this is not possible. So I say thank you. And I think that in 2 years, there will be another European Resource Forum, and there will be the next step where we can check how much of our ideas, how much of the impact on policy has succeeded. So take with you, dream about happiness, about Factor X, and have your wine, beer, tea, water, wherever you are in the world, and stay healthy and stay optimistic. Thank you.